You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Claret and Blue podcast. We've just seen Villa draw 1-1 with Newcastle thanks to an El Mohammadi goal, which makes this podcast slightly less depressing than it would have been if he'd not come on and scored. Matt, what do you think of the game? I've put a little post out on social media asking whether we think 1 point is enough or whether it's good enough there. My kind of first thought is that it's not enough, and I think it was a must-win game at all costs, but it's a point for Villa, another point towards safety and that total that we're aiming for, but with the fixtures we've got coming up, it looks a bit bleak, doesn't it now?
I think it looks bleak in terms of the points tally, because you're right, it's not enough in terms of picking up points and trying to stay up in instalments. I took a little bit of encouragement from the performance, whereas against Chelsea, obviously there was kind of expectancy that we're going to end up with no points, but I felt Chelsea was no points and no hope. I found Newcastle
after
to be...
the game.
Yeah. After we'd watched the game, it was like, not only have we finished empty-handed from that, but we're forlorn, we've got nothing to offer. Perhaps it's because the sun's shining today and I've got the punk IPA and the go again, but I'm clutching a little bit to try and find some encouragement out of tonight, and I found some, and the thing that I found was Villa will concede a goal. Villa will find that's not the positive, by the way. Villa will find a way to concede a goal, but I felt for the most part, other than that kind of very, very kind of lax moment of defending, I thought they defended fairly solidly. But I actually thought they showed some kind of attacking intent for the first time, both in the lineup when Smith's named two wingers, and we'll come to those, I'm sure, in a while. But the fact that he's decided that Jack does need to move inside to influence the game more, he's changed it. He's done something differently. He's made a positive change. Villa have produced a more positive performance, and I think the biggest thing is I don't think they could have come away there with empty-handed. That would have been a real kind of a kick in the gonads. So I think the fact that they've shown a little bit of spirit, a little bit of character to not only summon up the energy and the endeavour to get an equaliser, but to almost kind of knock on the door to try and win it late on. So that's what I'm kind of hanging my hat on. I know it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to scrape points here and there. But look at the league table, which I'm scrolling down on my laptop now. Villa aren't cut adrift. And from what I've seen in the glimpses of the teams around them, are equally poor.
But do we think our running is worse than theirs, though?
I think so. But if they get no points, from theirs as well, do you know what I mean? I think if the Villa would have lost that game, I think my kind of morale would have been on the floor. And I don't really want to think too far ahead to Saturday against Wolves, because I do think it's going to be a mismatch, and I think Villa are going to have to crank up another couple of levels to even stay in the game against Wolves. But I think if we're just looking at that match compared to the match that went before, I think there was improvements there.
Do you think that we've looked kind of generally better post-lockdown than we were before?
We're on a horrible run, aren't we? We're on a horrible run of games. So, but
but the fixtures just don't get any easier, though, do they?
But are Villa better than pre-lockdown? I think it's pretty much the same, if I'm being honest. Well, what I would say was the last time I saw Aston Villa play in the flesh, they didn't play too badly on either of those occasions. Dean Smith was under massive pressure tonight to try and influence things a bit further up the field to make Villa look like they could score a goal. But we know the reality is, if Villa don't score 2 goals, they don't win a football match. Because they will concede a goal. Even in a solid performance that I thought today, I thought that the back four looked pretty decent, and I thought they got good protection. Listen, Newcastle weren't. It wasn't the most important match that Newcastle United have ever played, but I thought Villa looked okay defensively. But they'll still throw in a goal. They'll still concede a goal, and it was such a shoddy goal to concede. You know, Dwight Gale has just come on. There's every single Villa fan in the world watching from wherever they're watching, thinking he's going to score. Listen, who knows? It might have been a 0-0. Villa might not have had the impetus to go up the other end and score anyway if Dwight Gale hadn't scored. But I just think, in terms of kind of being architects of your own downfall, Villa always find a way, don't they?
I think it is as well. Like the amount of kind of opportunities we get and that we make, and we have to, I don't know whether you said it or James said it, every opportunity we make we have to fight so hard for. Then Newcastle can take a throw in from the halfway line and somehow score from that. Like, how is that fair? How are we at such a poor level that they can take a pretty meaningless throw-in? That, I mean, for Villa's throw-ins, we barely even get to keep possession when we have our own throw-ins, whereas we let Newcastle take one from the halfway line. Andy Carroll pings it around his feet and holds up play, and 3 or 4 players seem to get dragged over to him for some reason. And then Dwight Gale's left one-on-one, and he's literally just come on straight away, first touch and scores. Like, that's such a sloppy goal to give away. And it's so preventable at so many different occasions. Surely closing down the first man from a throw-in from on the halfway line means that goal never happens.
We're not going to have a massive amount of time to dwell on this, so whether it's a positive point and a turning point, or whether it's just another winless game that sends us on the road to championship obscurity, I don't know, but I personally would like to just cling on to a crumb of comfort just while we can that Aston Villa didn't lose that match.
I mean, that's a depressing statement, isn't it?
It is, but it's where we're at, isn't it? It's where we're at. I mean, look at that league table. And people have been saying to me, it's going to go down to West Ham on the final day of the season. It's going to go down to West Ham, and I was like, no, be done and dusted by then. We'll be well gone by then. But I'm looking at it, and obviously, like you say, the teams around Villa we think have got kind of fixture lists, but it could go, couldn't it? It could go all the way to then.
Yeah, 100%. I said in the last episode to James about, we've got 10 games left, or whenever this was, we had 10 games left, 9 games left to get 20. No, where are we? 10 points. Yeah, so we basically needed just over a point per game, right? And I was saying, well, there's 24 points still left to play for. We need to get 10 out of 24. That doesn't sound that difficult. And someone rightly said in the YouTube comments, well, we've only got 2 points from the last 25 points or whatever from the previous run that we're on, which is a very fair point, that you kind of, because you've not played football for so long, you kind of forget how bad we are. And you just look at it and think, 10 out of 24 points, that's pretty doable. And then you look at our fixture list and our current run of form and you think, 10 in 24 is basically impossible. So where does that bias come from, I guess? And that's just kind of blind optimism and hope that surely we can scrape 10 points out of somewhere, surely. And then you get 2 points out of 2 games where you probably needed to get 4 at least. And then you've got Wolves, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Everton. Don't. It's rough. Like, where are those points coming from? I hate to say it, and I hate to be negative about it, because you do want to hold on as far as you can. And if it does come down to the last day and you beat West Ham and stay up, then absolutely happy days. I'll be all for that. But you look at it now and you look ahead, and that run of fixtures does not look kind. And I'm now very, very worried.
People have spoken about Dean Smith's substitutions, haven't they, in recent weeks? And we know it's 70 minutes gone on the clock because the board comes up for El Ghazi and Trezeguet comes on. But it's just weird that kind of I saw a few people tweeting when Elmo went on, thinking, oh great, positive move there, Dino. And I know he'd already made changes by then, and then Elmo conjures up the winner, and I think it's hilarious. I think he's probably
the winner. Steady on.
He feels like a winner. He feels like a winner. We've been that starved, but it's he can just. I think he's shot straight to the top of Steve Bruce's transfer wish list now, Elmo, where he's always been for all of his life.
What do you think of that change in formation then? Let's talk about, or not changing formation, changing personnel, and then a change in formation later on in the game. We start with those 2 wingers playing at last, and Jack moves back centrally, and for the most part, we look much better.
Well, there were some good chances, wasn't there? They started with a little bit of a purpose, I think, and I think the team sheet kind of highlighted that. And then, there was Trezeguet. Has he ever struck a ball cleanly?
Mate, he should have scored that.
So he's got to bury that, and I think they were comparing it to the Chelsea's goal, weren't they, on Saturday, sneaking at the far post, and whereas their guy Pusely manages to steer an awkward bouncing ball into the net. We've got Trezeguet who blazes it over, and then so he's at least been there to provide the threat, and then El Ghazi's whipped the ball in, hasn't he, for Samatta. Those are good chances for a team that doesn't create much. You've got to make sure that you're clinical, because you're not going to get 5 or 6 or 7, 8 good chances. You're not going to be Man City. You carve teams open at will. You're going to have to capitalise on those little moments. Even against the lesser Premier League teams or the Premier League teams like Newcastle don't any longer have much to play for, they're still going to games are still going to ebb and flow, and they're still going to get their opportunities. And it was just, I don't know. I thought they were strong, like I said, for half an hour, but this sounds like the kind of Trezeguet El Ghazi bashing from me. Okay, it's hindsight, but would Villa have been better adding the transfer fees from Trezeguet and El Ghazi into one winger who was going to deliver a little bit more consistently? If again we're looking for positives, Smith's changes paid off because Villa got back into the game. Maybe Douglas Luiz was the training ground player that Dean Smith was hinting about, because he seems to have stepped up a notch. I think in terms of his attitude as well, he seems to be kind of quite tigerish as well as having a little bit of class when he's in possession. So I think he's probably he's probably what you'd call the silver lining of a cloudy return back to Premier League football for Villa, which probably, if he keeps improving at the rate he is, then Man City's buyback clause will seem like shrewd business from them, won't it?
Let's talk about that midfield a little bit, because when the news was first kind of mentioned that football was going to be coming back at some point, and we were all going, oh my God, well, John McGinn will be fit by the time that comes back. What a massive lift that will be. So far, and I know it's because he's had his injury, he's not been the same John McGinn of before his injury and before lockdown, and he's not had the impact that we'd hoped he would yet. But Douglas Luiz is a player that was kind of hot and cold before this, and he's really stepped up, like you said, during this time, and he's been kind of the bonus player that we didn't have before. It's probably silly, wasn't it, to kind of hope too much or to expect too much from John McGinn, because he has had a serious injury and not played. So for us all to look at it and go, well, he's back for 10 games, so that's good. He'll clearly make a massive difference. He hasn't, because it's a tough injury to come back from, whereas Douglas Luiz has stepped up and has kind of surprised a few people. And now with Jack back in the centre again as well, especially in the second half, that looks like the midfield trio that we're probably going to get the most out of. Having said that, when Hourihane came on, he looked pretty effective as well for the little 15-minute cameo he had.
I was amazed that McGinn started tonight. Although, having said that, I actually thought for the first 15 or 20 minutes, when Villa were trying to force the issue, I thought it's probably some of the best that we've seen of him tonight.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, he's definitely getting better as time goes on, but he's not kind of coming back, scoring goals and keeping Aston Villa up, is he, like we all thought the impact he might have.
But I've got a theory. I think McGinn's saving himself for the last game of the season, when we fluke a 1-0 lead against West Ham, and then for the rest of the game, he runs the width of the pitch to keep the ball in the corner. I think he's going to keep doing that. The thing that encouraged me tonight, and again, like I say, it's probably a little bit of clutching on my behalf, but against Chelsea, the Chelsea back four could have got the deck chairs out for probably the most of the game, whereas against Newcastle tonight, there was a sign. I mean, listen, in our heart of hearts, we probably didn't think that Villa were going to win that game at the end, but there was a sign that Newcastle were kind of hanging on a little bit. The goalie wasn't pulling off kind of worldies left, right and centre. We weren't rattling the bar and stuff like that. But there was a sign that Villa were, if anybody was going to win it, Villa were. So I think we just got to take what we can from it, really, because, it's been... I think I tweeted this morning that, it seems a long time ago we were looking forward to football being back, and then it came back and you thought, oh, God.
Yeah, I think I tweeted something after the Chelsea game saying, "Oh, just forget it. I don't want football back anymore. Can it go back, please?"
We know that it's worth 150 million quid to stay in the Premier League, but the consequences of not being in the Premier League mean that you change the manager, you change all his backroom staff, you have another 10 players who the new manager doesn't like, so you've got those, and okay, they're not going to be on as fat contracts as we've had previously, and you'd think there'd be some kind of relegation clauses that are inserted as well. But you have that upheaval again at a time when Dean Smith was brought in as the manager to lay down some proper foundations. We've spoken about Villa being a club that could almost have, this sounds like a proper kind of this sounds like a proper thing to say, like the Villa way. We thought that this was the time where Villa...
the Villa engine.
Villa engine, yeah, bloody hell. That spluttered on the hard shoulder somewhere with Keith Warner, Steve Round and Tony Jark kind of lifting up the bonnet, trying to see what's gone on. We hoped when Villa got Dean Smith in, Dean Smith delivered promotion, and new owners and Christian Perslow spoke about kind of these visions. We hoped that they were going to build something lasting. That doesn't happen. if you suddenly go back to the drawing board again and Villa suddenly become a kind of a quick fix football club again. And I just think, like I say, I think the consequences of it are kind of very far-reaching. I don't think, we've said this before, I don't think that means that you stay with Dean Smith through whatever if Villa are appalling. But I do think that you need to decide, what do you want this club to be? Do you want them to be a kind of boom and bust club, or do you want them to be set on a steady footing, that even if we decide that the head coach does move on kind of every 2 or 3 years, that you've got a way that the next head coach can fit in and pick up and do the job with the players that I've got, rather than, you know, having what we had last summer. And I know it wasn't because of change of manager, it was just because of circumstances. You don't want to be a turnaround of players like that at that level every summer, because you don't build anything.
So the easy solution is to stay up in the Premier League this year, isn't it?
It's a solution. I wouldn't say it's an easy solution.
Nah, it's easy. Just got to win 4 games that are basically impossible. We're going to have to talk about these fixtures in like 3 or 4 days' time anyway, with the way that football is rolling around so quick. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. It's Wolves next. I'm scared of Wolves. Do you share that fear?
I think the thing with Wolves is not only that are they an exceptional team, and they've done kind of what we're moaning about Villa for not doing, about having that consistency and only kind of tweaking their team if they know they're going to bring in 2 or 3 players that are going to be an improvement on what they've got. But I think it's because they've come from nowhere, and there's almost this kind of faux rivalry that was created when Villa and Wolves were in the Championship, and, you know, kind of Brucey kind of had a pop, didn't he, at the way that they were set up with Fosun and George Mendes, and then Villa, it was revealed that Villa weren't exactly kind of didn't really have their own house in order financially and that kind of thing. So it's kind of, and because, you know, like me and you kind of live black countryside, there tends to be more Wolves fans in my vicinity than there does kind of Blues fans, to be honest. So, and they really are the noisy neighbours. So it doesn't really bear thinking about that a Villa team desperate for points to kind of try and claw their way out of danger, and a Wolves team that are desperate for points to try and kind of gate crash the Champions League. What kind of mismatch is that? It only seems like yesterday that Jamie O'Hara and Roger Johnson and all those kind of people were kind of heaping shame on Wolves as they tumbled from the Premier League to League One. And, you know, it was kind of as we'd always expected it to be. Then all of a sudden, Wolves become this force, and kind of Villa are trying to cling on to hang on to the coattails. So I want Saturday here and gone. I
hope Steve Wollaston, our colleague, has stopped listening to this podcast since lockdown, because he's going to be loving this bit. He'll be straight on WhatsApp once he's seen this, going, "Hey, look at you two praising at Wolves."
He's just upset that we haven't brought him on to speak nonsense with us. But yeah, so I think I'd take a point on Saturday.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's one of those, isn't it? You now look at the fixture list again on paper and look at how difficult each game is and think, oh, nothing there, no points there, no points there. So anything you get is a bonus now, and you're seriously looking at those handful of games, Palace, Everton and West Ham, as having to win all 3 to stand any chance of staying up. So the pressure is absolutely on Villa now, and you just hope that, first of all, they win the games you expect them to win. And if we get a cheeky draw against an Arsenal or a Man United that you very much don't expect, then that's enough to see Villa over the line. And obviously the teams around you keep losing as well. But it's just a horrible position to be in, having to keep checking other fixtures. Wow, what did Bournemouth do tonight? What did Norwich do? What did Watford do? It's like, I don't care. I don't want to be looking at these other teams and what they're doing. I just wish Villa were good enough to get themselves out of trouble and do their own job rather than having to rely on other people. It's a grim situation, but like you said, that's the reality of it, and that's where we are now. And roll on the end of the season. Shall we wrap it up then? Because I am sweltering in this room, and I've put this shirt on because I like to wear something Villa related on the podcast, and I've put this on, and I'm really, really hot. So I'll be happy to call this podcast a day, and we'll be back in 3 days. Is it? We play Saturday. We play Saturday lunchtime, don't we, against Wolves? So we might, if we're lucky, regardless of the result, because obviously we've got to do a podcast anyway. That podcast might be out Saturday night if we record it straight after full time.
We'll get it done and get it gone. It's an early kick-off. I just wanted to make a point about that top that you're wearing at the moment, which I've seen it. I'm not convinced it actually is a genuine top. I think it's like some kind of knockoff off Blackheath Market from kind of 1989 or something like that.
Yeah, it's weird. It's Hummel, and it's got the round badge on it, number 5, and it's got McGrath on the back. I won't show you here because I'm sat down, but I'll put a clip in of it here. I mean, I don't really care, to be honest. If it's not legit, it's still nice. I still quite like it, but it's very kind of thick and warm, and it must be about, well, it isn't now, but I think it was 30 degrees at some point today. So the sooner we wrap this up and go, the better for me, because it's just too hot in here.
Anyway, shall I sign off?
Yeah, go on, you can do it. Why not?
Okay. Yeah, these podcasts are coming along at a rapid rate. If only we got as many Premier League points as we had podcasts, but we'll be back again after the Wolves game. We're not cut adrift yet. There's still reasons for hope, and we'll be with you every twist and turn and glorious moment and depressing failure. So cheers for your support, and until next time, up the blooming Villa.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Until then, up the Villa.